So the night brings out the hunger in everyone, including vampires. So let's prowl the city streets as we descend to the graveyard shift. Mysterious cab driver Helen Pappas works the night shift, luring a sultry array of passengers within his grasp. Embracing those ready to die, he controls a vampire underworld which attracts the attention of the police, as a slew of innocents are grotesquely slaughtered. Unexpectedly, on his nightly rounds, Pappas discovers erotic human passion with the sorrowful Michelle, giving his tired, centuries-long life some fresh blood. However, this romantic affair may lead both of them down a tragic path, as the two of them fully embrace one another in the seductive air of the night. So this Graveyard Shift was a 1987 Canadian-produced horror film that should not be confused with the later Stephen King Graveyard Shift movie, which was released a few years later. And after that film came out, this film kind of went by a bit of a different title, such as Central Park Drifter or Central Park Driver, which is a little bit misleading because, one, the film shot in Toronto, so it's not shot in New York, even though we may be able to imply a little bit that it is, but it never really stated what city this takes place in. And there's absolutely nothing to do with Central Park in the movie whatsoever, so Graveyard Shift sticks for me. And this was a film that I did see a lot. It did catch my eye a lot in the VHS rental store, because I'm a big vampire movie fan. I love Dracula, I love all types of vampire flicks. And I swear, because late in the movie, one thing hit me, one shot in the film hit me. It's like, I've seen this shot before. I've seen this. I don't know if I've seen the whole movie in its entirety before, but I at least saw some chunk of it at some time. Maybe I did rent it at one point, but I just completely blacked out on it. But regardless of that, this is my first time really seeing it fresh, be able to convey my thoughts and feelings to you guys. So Graveyard Shift is a film that does have a lot of good qualities to it, but I don't think overall they make up for the shortcomings that this film has. Now, one of the things that really struck me about this film as I just started watching is that in a lot of cases this thing has very strong visual style to it. This is definitely a very 80s film, delving into that sort of neo-noir slick type of sleek landscape of the urban environment. It just screams 80s with the soundtrack this film has in certain moments. And the cinematography just looks great, just such great inspired lighting, just images that just pop right off the screen with great vibrant colors and some great eroticism. It's just like, in these moments, this director, who, telling the last name I'd probably butcher if I tried to say it, really shows a great eye for visuals. I thought maybe he probably could have been a good music video director in the 80s, but I don't see anything in his filmography that suggests that he was. But he absolutely has the visual key for it and the sort of editing style for it, because there's a lot of MTV style editing in this film. There's a lot of little montage sequences or just real fast cut, kind of rapid type of images that don't entirely tell a very cohesive, flowing story, and there's problems with that in the film too. But on the strengths of this film, that the cinematography in a lot of cases, when it really goes for a lot of bold visuals with the colors and the shadows and just that great seductive atmosphere, it really excels in that type of way. And this director really shows that he can make those moments just absolutely sizzle on screen and just add so much atmosphere to the film. And the music of the film is kind of a mixed bag as well, that there are certain moments where it's much more trying to be a little kind of filler type of music, and it kind of comes off as that. It doesn't really aid in any kind of atmosphere or anything, or really kind of create any kind of tension or momentum. But when it really just kicks into gear with a very saturated type of synth pop type of 80s score, I just love it. That's my type of music and everything. Just like when a film kicks that in, I think of like a Michael Mann production or something like that. Just comes in, just fills it up, and just adds so much of that great 80s vibe to the film. And the film has a whole lot of sex and nudity too, because, man, I don't think there's a single woman in this film who does not take her top off and show her bare breasts in this film, because if anything else, if you don't get anything else from this film, the eroticism, the sex, the nudity is just all over this film, place to constantly attract your attention to it, because it certainly did mine. And just like, this film is going for it, and is going for it all the way with that type of stuff. And like I said, the eroticism of this film is very well handled. These sex scenes, these seductive, sensual scenes shine like hell. It's like watching a Skinamax flick or whatnot. Just a great erotic thriller of sorts. There's so much mood and atmosphere, and just like, it just soaks you in so well. These scenes just show the strengths of this director and everything, that he can just make this type of atmosphere just glow on screen. Just like, everything works. The visuals, the score, the editing, the pacing, just everything comes together in such an amazing package. There's such, there's like this one sort of montage sequence, a little past the halfway point in the film, where you see like 3 different women, mostly naked and everything, and there's just a great sort of poetry to the thing, that all these shots kind of mirror one another. There's just all these little actions of death and sex and everything just kind of meld together in a really fantastic way. So this director obviously has a certain amount of talent for telling very erotic sort of visual stories and everything. But the overall story of this film is not really that good. It's a film that lacks cohesion, lacks a tight pacing, it's just a film with a very loose narrative to it, with a very choppy sensibility to how it kind of structures and moves from one thing to another. It's just not a real good flow with this film. And then even the story itself just doesn't quite hook you in or anything. This film doesn't really deliver much in the way of scares or anything like that, or a lot of suspense. There's a good amount of gore in it. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of beauty in certain moments with the blood and everything, mixed in with the sex and all that kind of stuff. Right from the beginning of the film, you get a real good, strong vibe of that type of thing. But as the film goes on, it's just like, it's very much definitely concerning itself with that love story in the film, that sort of romantic connection that these two characters are trying to build up between one another, and it carries that all the way through the film. But ultimately, there's not anything very compelling about the story to really kind of draw you into the whole thing. And the lead of the film, Silvio Oliviero, or as his real name is, Michael Miranda, is kind of okay. That you get, I definitely got the certain vibe that they were kind of really going for that Chris Sarandon, Jerry Dandridge Fright Night vibe. That the guy has similar looks to Chris Sarandon too. He has a very good look in every type of way. That his own facial look, the way he's dressed, everything, the whole film, he has a very good look to him. And they're trying to go for a little bit of that kind of seductive type of thing. He's got a little spark of something, but it's not nearly enough to really make this character someone that you're going to be really invested in. He really lacks a certain amount of presence or charisma. It kind of falls a little flat in certain times when he really has a long string of dialogue to really give you. Because a lot of the film, he's kind of little short spurts of dialogue, just kind of being a little bit more of a low-key character. But once you actually see him trying to deliver a long string of dialogue that's intended to be a little bit more compelling, kind of a bit more kind of intriguing and everything, you really kind of like, you get nothing from it, because he's got really nothing behind it. And that's really one of the main failures of the film. Not the overall failure, but one of the real things. If you had someone the caliber of like a Chris Sarandon or like a Frank Langella from Dracula to really bring in very strongly that kind of mesmerizing, seductive aura and charisma to it, this film would just really click very well. But this guy doesn't have that to really kind of inject that strongly into the whole of the film. And you got all these things where throughout the whole film he's got no shortage of women to seduce and spend his time with, because constantly there are women showing up that he has victimized before and probably obviously turned into vampires himself, that just keep finding him somewhere in the city, and just they do what vampires do and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, there's more sex, there's more blood and everything. They just pop out of nowhere sometimes. It's kind of like, that's just gets a little funny in the film. But Helen Pappas, I think, is probably the strongest thing in this film. Not rock solid type of amazing type of thing, but she really shows a lot of dimensional quality in her character. I thought she was very good, giving a lot of sympathy to this character. That she finds out that she's sick with something. I kind of figured since she's a smoker, she's probably got cancer, and she only got a few months to live. So she really kind of drives home a little bit of sense of sympathy and a strong sense of sorrow and sadness to the character. But there's still a little bit of sweetness with her. A little bit. There's just something that you can grasp onto and feel a little bit of strands of emotionality with the character to really just make her someone that you can connect with on a certain level and just kind of draw you a little bit into the film. Someone that's giving you a little bit of a depth and dimension to their character that really kind of does something for you with this character of Michelle. I thought she did a really good job with what she had to do. But ultimately the film just doesn't have enough to really kind of just click with you. Just like, even when you get into the third act of the film, it's kind of weird because usually in a vampire film such as this, there's always people like in A Fright Night or Lost Boys type of things, like where people would react rather kind of cockeyed and everything to someone suggesting that there are vampires in the world and everything. And this film, everyone just seems to accept that it exists and just they move on with the plot and everything, just like it's no surprise, just like, okay, there's a guy with fangs, he must be a vampire, let's go stake him. Just like there's no kind of surprise factor or whatnot. It just seems very kind of, I don't know, it's kind of might be slightly refreshing in a certain way that they're not going through that kind of cliche type of thing, but it's also like kind of puts you off because like, okay, so there's like not a very strong script in this thing. Doesn't really kind of compel you, doesn't have a lot of good narrative, doesn't have all that much beyond the seductive erotic scenes to really kind of drive your attention forward and get you invested in what's happening here. So Graveyard Shift, I would say it's an okay film. It's not terrible in any type of way. It's competently shot, well put together. Like I said, there's some choppy editing here and there where the thing doesn't quite have a good flow to it, but it's a decent watch. I mean, if you got 90 minutes to kill, it's not the worst way you can possibly do so. But this film did get a sequel of its own, and also star the same guy, which must be a different character because usually at the end of vampire films, the vampire doesn't make it. But if you want to go see the film, I'm not saying not to, so go check it out. But we'll see how the sequel stacks up at this point in time. It hasn't arrived in the mail, so I have no idea how it stacks up. So another video for you guys to watch if you're intrigued to see if it's better or worse, or no better or worse at all. So post your comments below if you've seen this film from '87 somewhere on VHS rental shelves in the past, or maybe you just stumbled upon it somewhere. Post your comments below about it, or just tell me what is your favorite vampire film of all time. There's plenty of Dracula stuff, there's Lost Boys, Fright Night, Monster Squad with my favorite Dracula of all time, which I might review this season, and so many other vampire films, and Interview with the Vampire, and so much more. But post your comments below. Definitely love to hear what you think about vampire films in general. So if you like the review, hit the like button, spread the links around, and I will be back with more Forever Horror Month very shortly, especially with a review of Understudy Graveyard Shift 2. Bye bye.